Yo, what up? It's your boy, Mr. E, and today we're going to learn about perimeter and area. You may notice that my setup's a little different than what it is at home. I'm actually in Galveston right now for a cheer competition, so bear with me as I'm doing this video from a hotel room, but I think the video is still going to be a lot of fun. We're moving into a new part of geometry where we know about our shapes, but now we're going to put numbers back into the shapes by learning about their dimensions and how we can find certain attributes about them. So we're going to learn a little bit about perimeter and area, which should be a review for a lot of you guys because we learned a lot about perimeter and area in 3rd and 4th grade, but I think it's always a good idea to go back and review. So before we get right into the numbers, we're going to talk a little bit about the definitions. First, we have this rectangle, and we're going to be using a lot of rectangles and squares as we're learning about these types of things. So the definition of perimeter is the distance around a two-dimensional shape. And as you can see, some arrows are popping up, so we know that we're going around. The way I help my students remember perimeter is it's like when we're doing a fence, if we wanted to see how long the fence was around a certain property. Also, think back to your favorite cop show or your favorite action show. They always say,
"We have the perimeter surrounded. Come out with your hands up."
"Oh no, what's happening?" All right, I'm back from jail, but perimeter is like surround the perimeter. If they're surrounding the perimeter, that means that, we're keeping the outside safe because we want to keep the bad guy inside because we want to go get him. So that's how I remember perimeter. Another thing that I think about with perimeter is that we're actually counting lines, okay? So when we think about our units are just normal, typical units. So like inches, feet, centimeters, yards. You don't have to worry about square or cube, and we'll talk about that in a little later, but we're counting the lines that go around. In fact, we could, break these lines up, put them all in one straight line, get a ruler or some way to measure it, and we would be able to find the perimeter. Now let's move on to area. So area is the amount of space taken up by a two-dimensional shape. As you can see, it got filled up with the blue color. So area is where we're counting squares. So we're counting how many squares fill up the space that we're trying to find. In 5th grade, we'll learn more about how we find area in shapes like squares and rectangles, but as you grow older and go to middle school and high school, you'll learn how to find area in really any shape. So we're thinking about counting squares, and all of our units will be squared. So it'll be square inches, square feet, square centimeters, units squared. So anytime we're dealing with area, we're talking about square units. So that's a really important thing to remember. So perimeter is counting lines, and area is counting squares. Now, let's start talking about how we can find perimeter and area using some numbers. All right, so we've got a problem here. We're trying to find out what the perimeter is here. Now, I know I'm teaching you about both perimeter and area, but these steps are going to apply for both of these, okay? Before I get too far into this video, I do want to tell you something that is going to be your best friend when you are doing these types of problems, and that is your star chart, okay? We are going to be passing these out to the face-to-face kids and virtual kids. You guys can come up to the school and get them or have a digital copy, and we want these to be something that you constantly refer to. You always have it on your person because we don't expect you guys to memorize every single formula, okay? And this formula sheet will be super helpful, all right? So, step 1, we're going to choose which formula you're going to use.
Remember, ravioli, ravioli, give me the formuoli.
So we'll get out that handy dandy star chart and we'll pick which one we're going to be using. For this one, we're going to be using this formula, which is P equals 2L plus 2W. Step number 2, identify what information you know and what information you don't know. So we have a P, an L, and a W. P stands for perimeter, L stands for length, and W stands for width. So these are the things we know and we don't know. We know the length is 5 because the length is how tall something is. We know the width is 8 because it's how wide something is, like Mr. E's pretty wide, big boy. And then P is perimeter, and we don't know that quite yet. I'm sure some of you guys have already figured out the answer already, but we haven't been given the perimeter. All right, so step 3, plug in the information you know and solve for your equation. So plug in is just a fancy word, or actually it's probably not as fancy as substitution. So we're substituting these numbers in. So we're going to be replacing, and then we just do the triangle method here. We go one step at a time until we finally get our answer. And so we got our answer, Illuminati confirmed, and we should be good to go. Step 4, replace the unknown variable with your answer to check your work. You know Mr. E is all about checking work and making sure we got a good answer. So we'd like to plug it back in. And if at the end we have the same number on each side, that means we did a good job and we got a good answer. And then step 5 is just to make sure to label your units. So when we have our answer, we want to label it correctly. This is in inches, so we're going to label it as inches. Perimeter, remember, is counting lines, so it'll be just plain old normal units, and area will be in square units. And we'll do a couple problems where we're going to be able to do that. So this is the steps. This is how you find perimeter and area. It's pretty simple. I know a lot of you guys might have just started going, okay, 8 plus 8, 5 plus 5, and got your answer. But we really do want you guys trying your hardest to use formulas, use equations, because it's going to be something that's very helpful to you as you grow older and as you use more equations. Let's go ahead and practice a couple problems together. All right, you guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm learning a new annotating software, and it has been rough. This is take like 15, but we're going to try to get through it. Here we go. So we're trying to find out what is the area, and we're going to figure out what formula we're going to be using. So the formula that I like to use is A equals BH, okay? Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why don't we use A equals length times width? That's what I'm used to. B times H is going to be something that we're going to see a lot more often as we grow and we go into middle school and try to find the area of other shapes. So I want you to start getting familiar with it now, okay? B just stands for the base of a shape or the bottom of a shape, and H is the height or how tall it is. So let's write down the things we know and the things we don't know. So we don't know the area, okay? So area is going to be a question mark, okay? The base is going to be 12 centimeters. And the height is going to be 28 centimeters, okay? So now we listed what we know and what we don't know, okay? Now that we've listed what we know and what we don't know, we can start plugging it into our formula. So we'll come over here, and we know question mark equals 12 centimeters times 28 centimeters, okay? Now, every time we do our equation, we don't always have to put the units in there like I did, but I did want to show you guys that for our first problem, okay? So basically all we're going to do is multiply these two numbers together. Now, 12 times 28 isn't really something I think you can do in your head. I don't know, we probably have some smart students that can do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the standard algorithm over here on this side. So I got 12 and 28, and we're going to multiply these two numbers, okay? So we got 16 over here, and we've got 5 over here, placeholder 0 because we're high quality students, and then 1 is easy because we can just do this, and then we're going to add it all up. So we've got 6, we've got 13, and we've got 300. So 336 is going to be our answer. So 336, and we do want to make sure we're labeling it correctly with centimeters squared, since it is area. So remember, in area we're counting how many squares, so it's going to be centimeters squared. Now, something that we do want to make sure that we do is we go back and check if our answer is good. So we're going to put 336 on this side, and 12 times 28 on the other side. We could always go back and check by multiplying again, but I think we can see that 12 times 28 is going to give us 336. So if we get 336 on both sides, we have a good answer. We did what we needed to do. And finally, we just need to double check, yep, we did label it with square units. So we got a good answer. Let's go ahead and try the next problem. All right, so the next problem is what is the perimeter and the area of the square? So what I notice right away is I'm only given one dimension, but I can also easily see that each of these dimensions are going to be equal to each other because it is a square, and we know all squares have to have all equal sides. So I know that the bottom is going to be 15 over here. So we know that it's a square. We know that it has all equal sides. So let's pick the formulas we're going to be using. So we're going to find area and perimeter. So let's start with perimeter. We're going to go P equals 2 L times, or not times, plus, that's a beautiful plus sign, guys, 2W. And with area, we're going to do A equals BH. All right? So we write what we know and what we don't know. So we don't know the perimeter yet. So we're going to put a question mark. I always forget when I do the little dot, I've got to like bubble it in. The length is going to be 15 and the width is going to be 15. So both of our numbers are 15 in this case, all right? So for area, we need to know that the area is a question mark. We don't know it quite yet. I'm going to learn that I got to do a dot there, bubble it in. The B equals 15 and the H equals 15. Okay? So now that we have this all set up, we can plug in and we can solve our equation. So we know question mark equals 2 times 15 plus 2 times 15. Then we just do the triangle method. 2 times 15 will give us 30. Rewrite the rest of our equation because we're high quality students. And we do want to remember we do one step at a time here, guys. We're not going to be going double steps here. Even though I know some of you guys probably already think you know the answer, and you probably do. We're just going to make sure we do one step at a time. Okay, and now we just have addition left. So 30 plus 30 is going to give us 60 equals question mark. So our perimeter is going to be 60, and we don't really have a unit, so I'm just going to say units. So anytime you don't have a unit, just write unit. It's a good way to do it. All right, now let's try to find the area here. So we've got question mark equals 15 times 15. Because we know if a letter's right next to each other, we're multiplying. So we're going to multiply 15 times 15. And when we do that, we get 25, 7, placeholder 0 because we're high quality students. That's going to give us a 5, a 12, and a 2. So question mark equals 225, and A is going to be 225 units squared. So we found the area and the perimeter of the square. We always could go back and check our answer, but for time's sake, I'm going to let you guys do that one on your own. One final thing I did want to mention is on your formula sheet, you don't have a formula for every single shape out there. For example, what if we had a pentagon and we wanted to find the perimeter of this? We could still do this very easily without a formula sheet. We know a pentagon has 5 sides, so we would just add all 5 of those numbers together to get our answer. Now, when it comes to finding the area of shapes of these, stay tuned. You'll learn about that in middle school and high school, but for now, you don't have to worry about that. But we definitely should be able to do a problem about perimeter for a pentagon or any other type of shape. So, hopefully this video was helpful. Hopefully you can get some more practice with perimeter and area so you can get a hundo on your next test. Keep learning, Els Bros.